We're all shaped by our early years, and my years in at my grandmother's farm and with my father and my great uncle and so on, sort of being out hunting with them and fishing and picking blueberries. I mean, my Scots-Irish people, basically when they came here, they lived very much like Indigenous people because they didn't have any other source of income, and so they lived off the land and year-round. And so I learned some of that from them, and that love of the land. And so even though I went off to university, I did geology and then biology, I never lost that connection with the land and understanding that we're all part of it. The last part of as a teenager and as a young man, I was a jock. So I played football, I played some hockey, some junior hockey, and played some professional football, coached some football. And when I came to U of A and finished my PhD, they assumed I'd want to stay as head football coach. And I said, no, what I'd like to do is teach. I'd like to teach outdoor education. So I went and did outdoor education at U of A. They were happy with that. And so throughout my years there, I coordinated their outdoor education program. That involved everything from taking kids camping, summer or winter, teaching wilderness travel, whether it be canoeing or cross-country skiing or whatever. And that was my life there. And I always tried to integrate nature into that. I didn't have a lot of time for activism in the early years, but I guess about 50 years ago, I started to realize there were some problems. I was concerned about what was happening to Canada as a country. I realized that we were campers, and I still believe that I'm camping here. Been camping a long time, over 400 years. For me, any environmental thing that I did had to be based in Indigenous wisdom, not only North American Indigenous wisdom, but I own Celts. My Celts before they became industrialized, of course, they believed a lot of the same things, that we're part of nature and that we're brother or sister or cousin to the other plants and animals. So that's always been a fundamental premise for me. In the midst of all this, I hear this little Irishman speaking on CBC, Dr. John O'Connor, and he's talking about all the weird cancers and the cancer rates he's getting with his patients in Fort Chip and Fort McKay. I started working to get a hold of people from Fort Chip, but it was the elders that came and talked about what had happened to their water, to their land, to their blueberries. They talked about the water and they're concerned about their watershed. The watershed itself includes all of the lands, both uplands and the wetlands and lakes and rivers that all drain together into larger and larger streams and eventually into the Athabasca River and eventually the Athabasca Lake. And they talked about concerns they had with the water, and particularly stuff coming out of the tar sands and the tailing ponds. We made resolutions to organize a basin-long organization, and that it would be a coalition of original peoples, of Engos, of settler citizens. So we continue to be guided by traditional elders' wisdom. The original declaration, the Keepers of the Water Declaration, was put together in Fort Simpson in August or September of 2006. Turtle Island people's philosophy, water is a sacred gift. And that's what we have today. It's pretty much unchanged, the original Keepers Declaration. It basically talks about that we're all part of the same nature, the same creator, inspired organization of plants and animals and the ecosystems. But the idea was to try to encourage, support individuals in native and non-native communities in each of the tributaries of the Athabasca, the Cree Lake and Cree River, and all the way over to Wollaston Lake, and encourage them to voice their concerns. So throughout the whole watershed, from top to bottom, we got some voices from elders that are long gone, and just so valuable, talking about muskeg water. This people over at Conklin or Janvier, Grandpa Harry, wonderful speaker. He talked about, and his granddaughter Agnes, talking about how important muskeg water was to them in terms of medicinals, and how they're afraid to drink it now because they don't trust it. With all the oil and gas development in there, they don't think they can trust it. It's not the same. The idea with the Keepers of the Water is that each of us as two-leggeds are responsible to keep the water.